What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Ao, and thanks for joining us for the news today. Taiwan's exporters could soon be hit hard if the government is not able to strike a tariff deal with Washington. But labor unions worry that workers will lose out even if there is one. They're now demanding the government keeps them in the loop about talks and listens to their concerns. Gov't reports.
Labor unions are banding together to demand that as Taiwan talks tariffs with the Trump administration, workers aren't left behind. Dozens of labor unions are calling on officials to consult with them and not to leave them in the dark about negotiations. Inside the legislature, union reps have announced a fresh alliance, with around 70 groups pooling their numbers to push the government as it tries to stave off U.S. tariffs of up to 32% on Taiwanese goods. While by their count, U.S. tariffs could threaten 500,000 jobs, that's not their only fear. What concerns them even more is a deal that averts tariffs but privileges companies, leaving workers worse off than before. They say the president and premier held more than 20 meetings with business leaders in the month after Trump announced tariffs, but even now in mid-June, they have yet to meet once with workers to hear their concerns.
他竟然把劳工撇开，他跟资本家谈，我们是第一线，我们直接受到冲击。那你不找我们谈，那我们是不是要到街头冲撞、革命？
They also fear the number of workers at risk of losing their jobs, even with a deal, could be greater than they've estimated. And they say they don't know how the government plans to look after the people who lose out under an agreement with the U.S.
目前政府的谈判的过程，到最后7月初的一个结果，可能会有更多的产业受到冲击，有更多的劳工的就业的劳动权益受到影响。那政府到底有没有提出短中长期的一些因应策略？那这是我们所担心的。所以我们呼吁主管机关应该要积极的推动，邀集劳资政三方建立社会对话的一个机制。
The Labor Ministry says it is too early to comment, and that existing labor laws will protect workers' rights. The unions, though, don't seem to agree. They say other countries like Japan have done much more to ensure their workers' welfare as they hold tariff talks of their own with Trump's government. The labor unions represented here say their alliance is not a publicity stunt. If the government doesn't listen to them, they say it can expect to see them massed in the streets. Ryan Wu and John Van Trieste in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
The new Taiwan dollar has been strengthening, spiking to a 3-year high on Tuesday morning before dropping back down again. The sudden surge comes amid a month of substantial gains against the greenback. In May, the Taiwan dollar's value rose over 10%, bringing the exchange rate to around 30 for every U.S. dollar. That rate reached as low as 29.1, but has since held steady at around 29.5. A Swiss research institute has ranked Taiwan 6th in world competitiveness. The International Institute for Management Development annually ranks 69 countries based on their business environment. It placed Taiwan in the global top 10 for economic performance, infrastructure, and business and government efficiency. Taiwan's National Development Council says it will use the report to inform policy and assess the nation's economic and social well-being. Some manufacturers here in Taiwan have stopped production due to new restrictions on China's rare earth minerals. To find out the role that rare earths play in Taiwan's high-tech realm, our reporter Ai Chi spoke to industry researcher Li Chenghan.
Which industries in Taiwan rely on rare earth minerals, and how central are they to the global market?
稀土在台湾的产业应用上面来讲，其实是非常广泛的。那主要的话包含各工业用的马达啊，然后资讯产品以及绿色能源跟电动汽车等，这边呢都有用到一些稀土原料。那目前来讲的话呢，在这个半导体产业啊，或者是我们的这个电子终端产品，因为台湾在这个各类的电子终端产品的产量呢，通常都是全球的前几大。所以呢，包含这个桌上型电脑、主机板、伺服器啊、笔记型电脑等等，还有手机，它们呢都会含有很多的这个稀土元素。所以可以这么说，我们台湾的很多的这个产业，其实都跟这个稀土元素呢是有很大的这个挂钩。
How can Taiwan achieve stability in its supply of rare earths?
那我们其实也可以想说，那我们可以发展一些材料，它是并没有含有这个稀土的。因为如果我们的开发材料它是并没有含有稀土的话，那我们就可以去降低这个我们台湾的一些关键产业他们对稀土的这个需求跟这个压力。还有一点就是我们可以去开发 我们从废弃物里面去回收稀土资源的这个技术。那从废弃物里面去回收稀土资源的话，不仅可以落实这个废弃物的这个资源循环，那同时呢，也可以避免我们受到这个其他国家的这个影响，然后所造成的这个稀土资源进口上面的困难的这个问题。
How feasible are these in terms of large-scale implementation in Taiwan?
在这个废弃物回收稀土资源里面来讲的话，我个人认为，其实在5到10年内，我们就有可以很大的商业化的规模。因为台湾其实很多的这个从废弃物去回收金属资源的这个技术已经逐渐的开发，比如说在半导体产业啊，或者是在我们的这个锂电池啊，或是一些电池里面，我们都其实已经开始在着手利用不同的这个技术去从里面回收这个金属。我们台湾很多的这个产业呢，其实都跟这个稀土呢有很强烈的这个挂钩，所以代表说我们台湾呢可能也会产生很多的这个废弃物呢是含有这些稀土的，所以呢我们其实呢可以想办法呢把我们现在台湾呢已经有的这个金属资源的循环技术，然后呢开发到我们的这个电子产品上面，把里面的稀土元素再次的回收回来。
That was Lee Chung-han from National Tsinghua University. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed a joint statement on the Middle East with G7 leaders after initially refusing to. Trump left a day early from the summit in Canada as Israel's conflict with Iran continues to heat up. Izzy Wells reports.
All smiles here on the second day of the annual G7 summit, as world leaders cozy up for a group photo in Western Canada. But this year, for Canadian President Mark Carney's first major summit as Prime Minister, he'll be wrapping up with one less leader present.
We had just a really great relationship with everybody, and it's really nice. I wish I could stay for tomorrow, but they understand. Is there a reason, big, Mr. President, that you can't?
The quote, big stuff in question, the escalating situation in the Middle East, as Israel continues to strike targets in Iran. On Monday, Trump called for the evacuation of Tehran on his Truth Social platform, putting the strikes down to Iran choosing to not sign a nuclear deal.
I gave Iran 60 days, and they said no, and the 61st you saw what happened. Day 61. So I'm in constant touch. And as I've been saying, I think a deal will be signed, or something will happen, but a deal will be signed. And I think Iran is foolish not to sign one.
G7 leaders did agree on a statement affirming Israel's right to self-defense, despite earlier indications that Trump wouldn't agree to calls for de-escalation. And before his early exit, Trump officially signed a trade agreement with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
And we just signed a document. This is, sorry about that. A very important document.
Albeit with some confusion on the details on Trump's end.
We just signed it, and it's done. And so we have our trade agreement with the European Union, and it's a fair deal for both.
But for the other leaders at the summit, the show goes on, with those remaining left to try and put up a united front in an increasingly divided world. Delphine Chen and Izzy Wells for TaiwanPlus.
More than 240 people have been killed and thousands more injured as fighting between Iran and Israel enters its 5th straight day. Israel carried out a series of drone and airstrikes on Iran throughout Monday after Iran fired a barrage of missiles. One of Israel's strikes hit Iran's state television station, forcing a reporter to flee during a live broadcast. Israel launched its air campaign on Friday, saying the goal is to stop Iran from developing weapons of mass destruction. Iran says its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes, but is threatening to leave the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Taiwan's domestically built Haikun submarine has embarked on its first sea trial, marking a major step in the country's efforts to boost deterrence against China. The Haikun left the port of Kaohsiung in southern Taiwan on Monday for the sea acceptance test. Though the submarine was unveiled in September of 2023, it has faced long delays in going to sea. The trial will test the Haikun's propulsion and navigation systems in sea, and it's expected to give Taiwan's Indigenous submarine program a significant boost amid increasing military intimidation by China. A total of 28 Taiwanese men, including actor Darren Wang, have been indicted for forging documents to avoid their mandatory military conscription. They were allegedly part of a scheme to pay up to $17,000 each for forged medical documents to get out of doing their military service. One of the suspects is the supposed ringleader. Wang did eventually report for duty and is now serving at the Taipei City government's Social Welfare Department. An agricultural co-op is working to spread the word about Pingtung County's quality chocolate while cutting down the carbon dioxide its growers emit. John Van Trieste has this story from Taiwan's cocoa capital.
Huang Zhaoying inspects the cocoa pods growing in her orchard in Pingtung County in southern Taiwan. It's early in the season and there's still damage from last year's typhoons, but Huang isn't worried. Thanks to the local farmers co-op she's joined, the pods are bigger and healthier than ever, and there's no need to worry about marketing.
土质是酸性还是怎样哈？看要用什么肥，它会有跟你验土，就感觉果实有比较大。
Chocolate is something of a specialty in this part of Taiwan, and that's in part thanks to the co-op's chair, Qiu Junyu. Qiu has been in cocoa for a decade, and he's seen the crop's ups and especially its downs. A few years ago, farmers were cutting down their cacao trees as they failed to find buyers. Now his co-op helps give Pingtung's chocolate a bigger profile and find a bigger market. Around a quarter of Pingtung's 62 hectares of cocoa fields now has an annual contract with the co-op. Cocoa is a complicated business, but here each step is carefully organized. Once a week, cocoa pods come in from the farms. The co-op does quality control and then begins a precise process of fermentation that can take up to 2 weeks. Beans must be carefully turned so they get the right amount of sun exposure and meet the criteria for sale.
晒透的，如我哋爱囤伊的水分含量降到7.8以下，也让它符合国际的一个标准安尼。所以今刚我哋一个步骤都尽量容易跟太阳接触，我们酿一些比较小的次级品的，我哋都会推脱起来安尼。
But quality isn't this co-op's only concern. To give its products an edge, it's going green. Standard chocolate production emits 17 to 19 kilograms of CO2 per kilogram of product. The co-op has this down to 7 kilograms and wants to push things even further. Last July, it got Taiwan's first carbon label for Pingtung cocoa. That certification didn't come easy, as one local official with a passion for the cocoa business attests.
所有嘅 data 資料全部新嘅，佢就對我哋咧天度嘅開始盤到我哋咧佢啲出來，放咗生牌啦，到100排，冇相同嘅嘅，我用嘅天水，特別用嘅天嘅種類，甲我去盤查，包括我哋奶肉地杯所下嘅皮料，全部甲我盤出來。 到後面要嘢成命過程要唔同，送出去要買嘅菜，是強下送出去，要買嘅資料做包裝。
But with climate change concern a growing factor in what people buy, these farmers and their co-op think they've hit on a plan to boost local agriculture and put chocolate from Taiwan's southern tip on a bigger stage. Joseph Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for watching What's Up Taiwan. Follow us on social media to get updates on our news stories in your feed. Finally, check out Spanish athlete Mireia Cabañez preparing for the 2025 Parasurfing Championship in the Canary Islands. I'm Eric Gao, and we'll see you next time.
Summer is here and the heat is on. Get outside, get moving, get in on the action Taiwan style. From epic trails to wild rivers and sun-soaked waves, adventure is everywhere. When the day cools down, the competition lights up. Fast plays, big moments, and non-stop excitement. All the action, all in one place. Game on Taiwan, where the action lives.